Welcome to Let's Grow Buffalo, where today we're going to talk about planting an apple tree. So today I'm going to be planting a golden delicious apple tree that I ordered online. They showed up to me as a bare root plant, meaning that I have to plant them within a week or two after receiving it. So I'm out here in my backyard where I've got plenty of space. I've already looked to see and make sure that this area is going to get enough sunlight and have fair drainage. I've run some tests on the soil to see if the pH and the nutrients are where they're supposed to be. And I just started with cutting the top layer of sod off just because we have so many grasses and mosses growing here. So I'm going to continue to dig down. It's recommended for a tree this size to have about a 2 foot by 2 foot hole. Now when I actually start the planting process, you can see this is a grafted tree. So there's a certain breed of tree that they use for the roots, which is disease resistant and will help keep the tree smaller. This is a semi-dwarf tree. So this thing's only going to grow to maybe 12 to 15 feet tall instead of towering and not being able to get the trees off the very top. And then on this section here, you can kind of see that the original tree started growing up to this point, and then they grafted on this golden delicious branch, and that's actually where I'm going to get the fruit that I'm looking for. I don't know what type of tree this base might have been once upon a time, but this is the tree that I'm looking for now. I just have to make sure when I'm planting this, I don't want to plant it too deep or too shallow. I want to make sure this root stays at least a little bit, actually this branch right here stays a little bit above the soil line. So let's get started. Okay, so we're gonna get started here. I'm actually switching over to the Empire tree, Empire apple tree. This is a personal favorite eating apple of mine, but it's good for a lot of uses. I got the hole dug, 2 feet by 2 feet. I started throwing in some of the supplied coconut fiber that came with it. And I also have some other garden soil, this black stuff in here that's got a lot of different nutrients. The nice thing about the garden soil is that it's easier to work with. The natural ground soil is going to be good because it has some of the microbes that are going to help this tree grow. The problem with it is when I started digging down, the first couple inches were solid as a rock. They're big frozen chunks since it's so cold out still. And everything underneath it, since it's spring in western New York, is still pretty wet. So you go to shovel a block out of here and you're just getting solid clods like this. So what I did before starting this section of the filming is put a lot of it into this bucket and just started churning it with a shovel. So that's going to help the natural soil be a lot easier to work with, so I'm not just crushing the roots. So I'm going to get the tree planted in here. Notice that the root and the trunk of the tree are facing downward here, but that causes the top of the tree to turn at an angle. I really want the main part of the tree to be vertical. That'll help with the growing process, so just make sure when you're doing it, that's the way you do it. And I'm also going to try and keep this tree into even an extra couple inches higher than the ground level here, just because it can get kind of wet. So I brought in some extra topsoil to give it a little bit more of a boost. All right, here we go. All right, so after you get this back filled in enough, you want to make sure that you really push down to push out any air pockets, especially on a cold day like today. Half of the soil that I had dug up is kind of stuck in clods like this. It's hard to separate. So when you start to just toss those in, you need something to really fill that space, because air's not going to help these roots grow. It does need some oxygen. That's why you get a garden mixture as opposed to just topsoil. But you make sure you compress it down, and while you're at it, make sure that the tree is in the position that you want it to grow in too. Still get a little bit of wiggle room down here at the base right now. So I'd say actually right about there is probably how I want this tree to grow. At least from this angle it looks straight. From that angle it looks straight. Perfect. In fact, I'm gonna get a weed barrier to put around the base of this, because you don't really want things like grasses and other shrubs in the area trying to compete for resources. So the growing kit that I've got came prepared with one of these in it. Basically, you just toss it around the trunk like so. It lets water and nutrients soak through it. You might be able to get a similar effect with something like newspaper. But yeah, this is going to help suppress anything trying to grow in this area, and I'm going to mulch on top of it. One last thing for protection, you really want to try and protect the base of this tree. It's not unusual for things in this area like rabbits to come by, especially this time of year when there's not a lot of food to go around, just looking for something else to munch on. So you can wrap something like this lightweight plastic around the trunk, so if they go up and try and bite it, they're just hitting plastic and they're not eating this tree of yours. Alright, so we had to take a short break there. I was running out of daylight and I needed to get some more topsoil that wasn't frozen solid. So I evened out the ground a little bit more, I cut back some more of the weeds, and I got some mulch. So I got this from the town, actually delivered to me. During the summertime they'll go around and start chopping these tree branches you leave up by the curb, and if you need some they can deliver them to your house. A lot of places in the area also have places that they put them at, like the highway department, so you can maybe even get some free mulch there. But anyway, I had the landscaping fabric laid down, and then I covered it with mulch. So this is going to help retain some moisture for the soil. It's going to help suppress the weeds that try to grow up, hopefully kill them off, so there's no competition for the tree itself. I wanted to make sure that around the base, the trunk of the tree, I didn't layer up a huge pile of mulch. I wanted to leave it actually a little bit barren. That way I can, it's going to help prevent any disease spreading from the mulch. You don't want the tree itself to be super moist over a long period of time, just the soil. But anyway, this tree should be good to go, and hopefully in a couple of years, 2 to 5 years is the range that I was given, we'll actually start seeing some apples. So any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. Until then, gardening is practice, and let's grow buffalo.